Yes, friends, you want to beat stronger opposition? Check out this opening. In this game, I had the white pieces against an opponent called Body Pie. Wait, let me go down to show you all their rating. I'm sure okay, it doesn't show here, but he was like 22, 60 around there, 2267, and I am just under 2200 in this game. But check what happened. I start with c4. He goes g6, knight c3, bishop g7, knight to f3, and c6, which is already considered inaccurate because you could just take over the center with e4. But I go d4, and we are now in the Great Snake variation, the English opening, very popular amongst especially the Chinese players. So d4, we get d5, I go e4 here, also considered slightly inaccurate, but I wanted to go out of book as soon as possible, as well as adapt something, a similar setup that Magnus had against Vichy Anand in the World Championship match in 2013. But that was more Slav-like, um, with e4 being played and black having then to choose to take d takes e or d takes c. After e4, then my opponent captures. I capture back with a knight. He goes bishop to g4. So now he has his bishop attacking my pawn as well as his queen. And he has his light square bishop attacking my knight, which is defending my d4 pawn as well as my queen. So let's say I play inaccurately and go, let's say h3. Well, now there's some trouble. After bishop takes, sample line, he can just capture with the queen and I'm down a pawn, or even the bishop should be fine. Yep. But avoiding all that, I go bishop e3 just to add an extra layer of protection, and I'm welcoming him to capture my knight. So he does that. Here we could even capture with the queen according to engines, but I went g takes f. The reason why, if we go here, for instance, and he does this, well, it doesn't work with the queen. You would just lose your queen for the bishop. If you go bishop here, you just castle, and now suddenly he cannot really do much. Okay, yes, he can take with check. You take back. He goes queen to c7 or knight to d7. But the difference in this position is white has firstly castled the king into safety. White has easy development for their pieces, and queen d4 comes with a lot of problems. It's hitting this rook on h8, say knight to f6. Well, now you just trade. You would think maybe going f6 here, but f6 just weakens your position even more. The first move that came to my mind was knight c5, but here the engine is suggesting this knight to g5. The lights just went off, guys. I do apologize for that. I'm not sure why that happened. I think we have a power cut. All right, let's go back to the game then. So because now of the internet, we won't be able to analyze much with the engine, which is not a problem. We get bishop to e3. My opponent goes bishop takes. I go g takes f. And my opponent follows up with knight to f6. I go queen to b3 here, going for some complication. Queen to b3 is also for wanting my opponent to capture here, of course. So if he takes, we can capture it like that. Unfortunately, the moves are not going to process properly now because of the power cut. But I just want you all to imagine after queen b3, knight captures, pawn captures, and we have a BWC, a big white center. And I was quite happy with that because despite if the bishop took, right, takes and queen takes, we would end up with queen takes on b7. And I felt this was fine for white to play. But my opponent makes a mistake and goes queen to c8, probably seeing ghosts guarding b7 like this. So now I castle long, he goes knight to d7, I go bishop to h3, also considered slightly inaccurate, but there's a reason behind this move. Bishop to h3 is setting up for this long diagonal and somewhat pinning this here. This knight cannot move, for instance, because if it does, well, you see there, the bishop would hit the queen. So my opponent castles, not a problem. I go king to b1, and the reason why is because I'm preparing a d5 break. So I can't play d5 immediately. Well, I thought not, because d5 takes, I cannot take back because of a check. I apologize for the flickering, guys. I think that's the power trying to come back. All right, bishop to h3 then. castles short by my opponent, and I go king to b1, preparing the d5 thrust. My opponent goes queen to c7. I imagine the reason why is to break the pin, right, on the knight here, so that they can maybe freely move the knight, maybe to b6, maybe try go e5, something like that. I then break with d5. The engineer suggesting a funny move of bishop f1. Good luck finding that. I did not even think of that. I'm just thinking of moving forward with my attack. D5 then, C takes D, C takes D, and here the mistake happens. So this position is much easier for white to play. If you just look at it optically, white has pieces out, fluid attack. The bishops are nicely placed, right? The rooks are nice on the semi-open file. This other rook can join easily. The queen is well placed, hitting this diagonal. And this bishop also becomes very important on the a2, g8 diagonal, as we will see now. So he has to find the move rook a to d8. I imagine rook f is also fine, but rook a to d8 to stop any funny business. But because now knight to b6, my opponent thinks, okay, they might be hitting here. Not really. After d6, we're busting and breaking open this position. E takes D, then we get knight takes, and now suddenly it's somewhat in only move territory, right? Because the position is quite fragile. You have to find knight f to d7, not sure why, but the problem is this f7 pawn. There's so much pressure on it, right? So my opponent makes the mistake of rook a to d8 now. So he's a couple moves too late. So yeah, I thought for some time I had 6 minutes 36 seconds. My opponent had 7 minutes 46 seconds on move 16. And after this, I had spent about a minute and a half calculating knight takes f7, which the engine then approves of, right? He goes rook check. The rook takes on d1 check. I have to capture back, of course. We, of course, do not capture back with the queen here because then, well, we don't have enough firepower to really fend off the coming attack. So he could even capture the queen here because then bishop e6 doesn't work as my queen would be on d1. But I keep my queen on this line, and very important, the queen stays on this line of a2 g8 diagonal. And it has the support of the light square bishop coming. Look at that. Like a beautiful triangle, all about to cause chaos in the top right corner. No goalkeeper can save that shot. Punchline for my soccer players. We get rook a takes on d1, rook takes f7, and now I'd calculated bishop to e6. What bishop to e6 does is it adds pressure on the already pinned rook on f7. There's not much black can do to defend it sufficiently. He has to find queen to e7, but then just bishop g5. And there's a lot of pressure here. That knight can't move it because then you just capture the queen. This rook is pinned till next week, so it also can't move. The bishop is locked away. This knight, you're asking, what are you doing? Because it can't go there, can't go there, well, can't go there. It can go back, but what are you doing on a 8? Knight to c8, well, again, you're just hanging as well that way. So the position's quite cramped for my opponent, and he has to find queen e7 to stay in the game. But he blunders with this knight to e8. And yeah, I thought for some time too, for some, sneaky sacrifices, maybe a rook to d7. Obviously, capture with the knight, and I can take like that because the queen's not defending on f7 since the knight's blocking. Then he'd probably go king f8, but then I didn't see a proper follow up. So I thought to myself, no, man, just simplify. You want to take control of d7, right? But you cannot just put your rook on d7 immediately, as the knight would just capture the one on b6. So what do you do? Get rid of the defender of the d7 square. So I did that. My opponent captures back with a queen, and now the position plays itself after queen takes b6. We do not trade queens yet. We first take off the rook. Because if we traded queens first, and we took there, suddenly it's a rook versus a knight and a bishop. And a lot of the times those endgames do not work out well for white, especially if there's still pawns on the board and all that. Perhaps in this position white would be slightly better, but it's much more drawn in that case. So we first get rid of that rook with check. Obviously king cannot take since the queen is still defending there. He has to go king f8 or h8. And now we take off the queens, exchanging then. Queen takes b6, a takes b6, and now we go knight takes, bishop takes knight on e8, king takes, and the simple rook to d6. We are hitting this pawn. There's no way to defend it. Say, for instance, bishop to d4 to try and defend that way. Well, you just take. You can go b5, of course. Okay, it's not going to show now because of the internet shutdown. But then rook to b6 would be hitting this pawn on b5 and on b7. Plus the light square, so that bishop can do nothing about that. So we go rook to d6, and here my opponent plays bishop to e6, blundering, and the final move, rook to e6. And it was on move 25 that my opponent then resigned this game because simply bishop to e4 thinks he's attacking the rook on d6, but the simple rook to e6 check hits the king and it's the bishop. So after king to d7, you are just picking up that bishop and you up a clean rook in this winning position. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys check out this opening, the Great Snake variation of the English opening. Very fun opening, very dynamic, and I enjoyed quite a bit. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that comment, like, and sub. It will mean a lot for the channel. Yeah, hope to see you soon for the next video. Take care and goodbye.